In today's video, I'm going to kick off with our very first video for Christmas in July. Hello everyone, if you guys are new, my name's Liz, and for today's video, I'm going to compile all of my favorite DIYs from last year to start off our Christmas in July. Now, if you're watching this the day that I posted, obviously today is not July, it is June 30th, so I'm one day ahead, but I wanted to put together all of my favorite DIYs that I did last year, and then in July, I'll put out some brand new Christmas DIYs to do my Christmas in July videos. Let me know if you guys are excited for that, and if it's something you want to see, let me know. How many videos do you guys want to see of Christmas in July? Obviously, I don't want to do the entire month just in Christmas in July, but if you guys want to see several of those videos, let me know in the comments so I know how many to do. So without further ado, if you guys want to see all of my favorite Christmas DIYs that I did last year, then let's go ahead and get started.
I grabbed one of these paper trees from Hobby Lobby. It was 50% off at the time that I purchased it. There's a couple different options that you could do. You could buy one of those, or you could always just buy one of the styrofoam shaped cones that, look like trees. That would work as well. The first thing that you're going to do is grab some ribbon. I chose 3 different kind of styles of ribbon or different colors. A glittery gold one, a nice green one, and then a plaid green one as well. Whatever colors you want to do works. You want to make sure though that all of your ribbon is the same size. At least that's how I prefer it. You could obviously do this however you want to do it. I just chose to make all of my ribbon 1.5 inches so that they were all nice and cohesive. Now I'm just going to start out by cutting about 7-inch strips for each of my ribbon, and I didn't really count how many strips I was cutting. If I had to guess, I would probably say 7 strips each to begin with. You're going to need a lot more than that, but I didn't want to cut out way more than I needed and then have a whole bunch of strips left over. So I just kind of eyeballed it at first and then gradually cut more pieces of ribbon as I needed it. Now you're going to take your ribbon strips, you're going to fold them in half, and you are going to glue the tops together. I do this for all of my pieces. You could do all this at one time or do it as you are gluing down each piece to your tree form. All you're going to do is put your ribbon towards the bottom, leave a little bit of overhang so you can't really see that bottom portion, and then hot glue it down. And then just do a pattern, whatever pattern you want. I just, did the 3 colors or the 3 different types of ribbon in a pattern, and I just went around all of the bottom portion of my tree. And then on my second row, I'm going to put my ribbon down right on top of 2 pieces of ribbon on the first row, right in the middle. It's going to cover up that gap in between the other 2 pieces of ribbon, so you're not going to see the brown underneath. And I like to have my ribbon stagger rather than up the entire tree. It's all just in one perfect line. This is going to stagger your ribbon, and that's just how I prefer it. Obviously, you can do it exactly how you want it. I like to have my ribbon staggered, and then it also helps cover up those gaps in between each piece of ribbon. And I'm just going to do this all the way at my tree. This exact same thing, this exact same pattern, all the way up. If I run out of ribbon strips, I'm just going to cut some more, hot glue them together, and then continuing to hot glue them to my tree form. And sometimes my patterns didn't work out perfectly. I had, patterns out of order, and that's totally okay. It does not have to be perfect by any means. It doesn't have to be the perfect pattern. It doesn't have to go the exact perfect way. I did it a little bit more messy than I normally do, and I liked it that way. So however you do it, it'll look great. And then for a finishing touch, I just took one of these stars that I got at Hobby Lobby in a pack of their mini ornaments, and I just stuck this right on top, and that's it for this DIY. I wanted to make a swag slash door hanger for this one. I love swag. I think it's really, really cute, but I wanted to kind of make a minier version to go on a door. So I'm going to start by taking a whole bunch of picks that I had in my stash, and then I had also picked a couple more up from Walmart in their 98-cent section with their Christmas picks. So I just started by tearing them apart. I tried to figure out how to do this without tearing them apart, and I couldn't figure it out. So I felt like it was best for me to cut them apart and then be able to put them exactly where I want each piece. So all I'm going to do for this is just kind of lay my pieces out. I have this bigger piece in my stash that I kind of used as a base, and then all the other pieces that I'm going to cut off from the other picks, I'm just going to kind of play around with the placement, and then I use floral wire to attach them all. So I just kind of stayed in that teardrop type of shape. So with that in mind, I just started wiring pieces together. There really is no rhyme or reason on how to do this, no technique. You're just going to cut your picks apart, place them where you think is looking good. If you see a sparse spot, put a piece of a pick there and wire it to the back, and just keep doing that over and over until you have it the way that you liked it. So I used multiple different pieces of picks here, some with flocked, some with that aren't. And then I'm going to grab these large white bells from the Dollar Tree. I had 2 of them. The first one I just hung over the top part, and then the second one I wrapped around a couple branches in the back so that it was nice and sturdy. You could always wire it to the back, but I just felt like since it already had the twine, they could kind of just hang where they wanted. And then I did take a couple pieces of red berries from the picks, and I did end up hot gluing those into the swag. And then lastly, I'm going to make a bow. Now, I tried several different ways to make this bow. I am not a professional bow maker. I can make the simple bows really easy, but the more complicated ones, I'm just not so good at. So I just started by cutting 2 loops that were pretty long. I didn't measure them. I just kind of placed them on top of the swag to see how long I wanted them to be. And then I cut 2 more at a smaller length. And then I hot glued the ends together. So I ended with a total of 4 loops. I crisscrossed the 2 larger loops on top of each other, and then I'm going to add the 2 smaller loops on top of that, and then I just kind of bunched them all up in the middle. And then I took a pipe cleaner and wrapped it around the middle part of my bow to keep it all nice and tight. And then I needed some tails, so I'm just going to take some more ribbon. I just kind of eyeballed how long I wanted those tails to be, cut them off, and then folded that piece of ribbon in half, stuck it behind the bow, and used the rest of the pipe cleaner to twist that and hold it into place. Now for the middle portion of my bow, and to cover up the pipe cleaner, I took another piece of ribbon, folded it into thirds, and then wrapped it around the middle of the bow. I just hot glued it in place. And then I grabbed this bell door hanger from the Dollar Tree. I needed it for the actual door hanger part. I didn't have anything quite this big in my stash, so when I saw this, I thought it'd be perfect. I'm just going to take it completely apart to the bare bones. So I just removed the bells, and then I'm going to remove the twine or string that was around the door hanger part originally. And then to cover it back up, I'm just going to use some twine. I just hot glue the first part in place, and then I'm just going to take it around and around and around and around until it is completely covered. This is probably the part that took the longest with this project. So I mean, maybe you don't have to do this part. Maybe you could spray paint it instead, so it's not just that solid kind of plasticky looking black. But I did feel like the twine added a bit of rustic touch to it, and I just thought it was really cute. So once that is done, just to finish it off, I'm going to add some more glue and then wrap the rest of my twine around, and that's just going to secure it all in place. Now to attach the door hanger to the swag, I added some twine around the top of the swag and then tied it to the door hanger. And then I wanted to cover up those branches at the top and I wanted it to match my bow, so I took some more of that ribbon that I used with my bow, and I just started wrapping it around the top of the swag and then in through the door hanger, back around the front to the back, and then I just hot glued that in place. And then once that's done, I'm just going to hot glue my bow directly to the top of the swag, and that is it for this DIY. DIY, I'm going to take 2 tag signs that you can get from the Dollar Tree. It doesn't have to be the summer ones. It can be really about anything. They always have these shapes out in signs for every season. And then I'm going to take this Dollar Tree vinyl paper, and it's this pretty buffalo check, which I thought was absolutely perfect. If you can't find this, you could also use buffalo check scrapbook paper, but I just thought this was perfect for this DIY, so I just stuck one of my tags down on top of my vinyl and then traced around it, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. Once it's all cut out, I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing, and then I'm just going to stick my vinyl to the back of my sign. And then any excess that's left over, I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife and trim up the ends. Now for my other tag sign, I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in silver lining, and I just gave it probably about 2 good coats. I wanted to make sure everything was nice and covered up. Once that's drying, I'm going to take these little ice skates that I got from the Dollar Tree. They're really, really cute. They come in a pack of 2. But the only issue I had is that they are going opposite directions, and I wanted them to face the same way. So I'm going to have to flip one of them over onto the back. I wanted to make sure that the back was nice and flush to the sign. So I am removing one of the snowflakes from the ice skate so that I don't have it only hanging on by that piece, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to go through and paint both of the ice skates white. I just gave it 1 good coat of white Waverly chalk paint. And then I'm going to paint the snowflake and the blades of the skates in black. And again, because we're using the back portion of the other ice skate, I just painted the whole thing white and then the blades black. And then obviously I don't have a snowflake to worry about painting for that one. And then I'm just going to glue my ice skates together, again, making sure they're going the same way because, you know, you've painted the back of the other one. You're going to just hot glue them together, and I just kind of made sure that the holes at the top matched up to each other. And then I'm just going to hot glue the entire thing down to my sign. I'm going to take a piece of burlap ribbon, and I'm just going to hot glue this around the back, making sure that I'm pulling nice and tight so that my ribbon has no bumps or waves at the front. Everything is nice and tight to the sign. And then I'm going to take a piece of some buffalo check ribbon, but I needed to make sure that it was smaller than the burlap ribbon that I just put down. So I did cut the buffalo check ribbon down a bit, and then I'm just going to hot glue this right on top of the burlap ribbon. Once that's on there, I'm going to assemble my 2 signs together. I just took some hot glue and I just placed this right on top of my buffalo check sign. Now I'm going to take a piece of twine for the bow at the top of the ice skate. I just wrapped some twine around my thumb and index finger, and then I'm just going to take an excess piece of twine around the middle, tie a double knot, and then hot glue the bow to the top of my ice skate. Now for the top of this sign, I am going to cut down some ribbon and I am going to make a big burlap bow. So the way that I do this, which there's probably an easier way, but this is just my take. I'm going to take a piece of ribbon and hot glue the ends together, making a loop. I'm going to do that twice, but the second one is going to be slightly smaller than the first. After I have those 2 loops, I'm going to cut another piece for the tails. I'm just going to fold the ribbon in half, kind of figure out how long I want my tails to be, and then I will cut that off, and then I will just layer everything together. The smallest loop on top, then the biggest loop in the middle, and the tails on the bottom. I'll take a piece of twine and I will just put that on top, wrap it around the back and tie a double knot and have the ribbon all squished up in the middle. Now again, just taking a couple pieces of some excess Christmas picks that I have, I'm just going to hot glue that to the middle, and then I will hot glue my bow right to the top, and that is it for this DIY. I had this unfinished sign that I actually got from Goodwill in a pack, but I know that this came from Joann's. So I'm just going to start by using my Waverly Wax and Antique to stain the frame portion and the back of the sign. Once that is all done, I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint and plaster, and I'm going to go over the entire middle with 2 good coats of paint. Next, I am going to take these paint stir sticks that came in a pack from Walmart. Now, my miter shears aren't quite strong enough to cut through these super easy, but they can cut through them enough where I can kind of bend it back and forth and snap it apart. So I'm going to cut this down into 4 separate pieces, each piece being smaller than the last piece. Once I've got all 4 of my pieces, I'm going to take some scrapbook paper that I got in a couple different packs from Hobby Lobby. Michael's also has some really good packs out. I was just there today and saw them and refrained from buying them until they're on sale, but they have some really cute packs there as well. Once I have my scrapbook paper out, all I'm going to do is trace my pieces out on my scrapbook paper, a different one for each piece. I'm going to take a glue stick and glue all 4 pieces of my scrapbook paper to my little paint stir stick pieces. Then I'm just going to line them up and hot glue them down in my sign. I purposely made them all a little bit crooked and just hot glued them all down. And then I also made a simple bow using some Dollar Tree gold satin ribbon, added a silver jingle bell to the middle of my bow. Hot glued a little piece of a wood stem down to the bottom of my tree, and that is it for this DIY.
So I'm just stopping you really quick to let you know I'm holding a giveaway. I am going to be choosing 3 different people to receive some crafting supplies. Could be something like this. Could be something like this. Possibly something like this, along with some things to use these with. So, you know, maybe it'll be these things. But again, I'm going to pick 3 winners, somebody to win that bigger kit, and then 2 others to win some smaller things. If you want to enter, make sure to leave a comment in the description box, leaving me your email address with a way to get a hold of you. And then if you want some extra entries, I'll leave a link in my description box where you can go and do some other things for some extra entries. I'm going to leave this giveaway up until July 3rd, so this coming Sunday. So make sure you enter before then. within for your chance to win some fun crafting supplies. Now let's hop back into our next DIY.
For this project, I'm going to take one of these wooden gnomes that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take 5 of these wooden planks that you can also get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to start by cutting off all the twine hangers that are on all of them, and I'm going to fill all the holes with some wood filler. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I did it for good measure just in case my frame did not cover them. I also remove the twine hanger from the gnome, and I put wood filler in the little hole at the top of his hat as well. Now I'm going to take all 5 of those wood plank pieces and my Waverly chalk paint and plaster, and I'm just going to give them one rough coat. I want to see some of that natural wood peeking through, so I just make sure to just kind of do a messy coat of this. I wanted it to look more rustic, so I only did just that one messy coat. And then for my gnome, I'm going to take some of this Dixie Belle chalk paint in Barn Red. I think this color is so pretty, especially for Christmas time, and I'm going to paint his hat one coat in this, and then his little legs and boots in this color as well. For his beard, I'm just going in with my Waverly chalk paint in white. I give his beard one good coat, and then somehow I don't have the footage anymore of me just kind of adding some streaks of gray to his beard, just to give his beard a little bit more dimension and, you know, make it look a little bit more gray and salt peppery. Now I'm going to take all 5 of those planks that I had painted. I'm going to turn them onto their back, and I'm going to use large popsicle sticks to adhere them all together. I just tried to line them up as straight as I possibly could, and then I'm just going to attach them all together using those popsicle sticks and some hot glue. And then I grabbed a square dowel from Lowe's. This is a 1/4 inch square dowel, and I cut it into 4 pieces. So you're going to cut 2 pieces the same size for the top and the bottom, and then 2 pieces the same size for the sides. I didn't measure this, I just kind of eyeball it. So I don't know a specific measurement, but I just put it up against my sign and marked with a pencil where I needed to cut it, and then cut it that way. Now to put it all together, I'm going to take some E6000 because I really want to make sure that this is going to stick and stay. And then I used some Gorilla Gel super glue as well, and then I just started framing out my sign. I just put the bottom piece on first, and then I'll put the 2 side pieces, and then I will put the top piece on last. And then lastly, all I'm going to do is hot glue my gnome to the very middle. And that's it for this DIY. I think this is so cute. It's just a very simple and rustic sign that I just think is perfect for Christmas. For this DIY, I am going to take one of these long planks of wood that you can now get at the Dollar Tree and one of these 1x2 pieces of wood that you can also get at the Dollar Tree. I'm going to start by removing the twine hanger from the top, and then I'm going to take some wood filler and fill in those holes at the top of my plank piece. Now I am going to kind of measure out where I want my white paint to go because this is going to be a rustic snowman. And so I just kind of measured how far down I want his face to be and his hat to be. And I'm going to take some Waverly white chalk paint and I'm just going to go over the bottom half with just one coat of paint. I don't mind if there are pieces kind of peeking through of that natural wood because I wanted this to be more rustic. And then for the top half, I am going to go in with my Waverly chalk paint in black. Now for the brim part of the hat for the snowman with that 1x2 wood piece, I'm just going to take some Waverly Wax and Antique, and I just give the front and all the sides a really good coat. Next, for the carrot nose, I'm going to take one of these tall pillar candles from the Dollar Tree. I've done this with a couple candles before in the past, and I think that they all turn out really fun. So I'm just going to cut off a piece towards the top with the top of the candle as the point of the nose, and I just trimmed it down to however big that I wanted the carrot nose to be. And then I'm going to take a utility knife, and I'm just going to go through and rough the candle up. I'm going to go and shave off all the sides so it's not so perfect and round looking. I'm going to give it a whole bunch of indents all over so it just looks like it's been through some days. So that it doesn't look so perfect and it looks like a carrot where it has all the indents and the scratches and everything like that. I'm just going to go through and do that with the utility knife. Once I've got that all done, I'm going to take some pumpkin chalk paint from Waverly, and I'm going to give the nose a good 2 coats. After that's dry, I'm going to take my Waverly Wax and Antique, and I'm going to make the nose look a little dirty and make sure that it gets in all the cracks and crevices. And I just took a paper towel and just kind of rubbed this all over the nose. And then to assemble my pieces, I'm just going to take some hot glue. I'm going to add my hat on just at a tilt. And then I'm going to take this scarf from the Dollar Tree, which is actually perfect for this DIY. And I'm going to cut a piece down at the bottom. I'm going to make sure that I get those little fringy ends in there. And I just went maybe halfway up the scarf, and then I cut that piece off, and that's what I'm going to use for the scarf around the snowman. So I'm just going to take my scarf piece, wrap it around the snowman, and then I tie a double knot, and I hide away that other second end just by tucking it up and underneath the scarf. And then I trim down the fringe at the end so it's not too long. And then lastly, I'm just going to hot glue his nose in place, and you have this adorable rustic snowman. I found this buffalo check Christmas tree canvas art print on the Kirkland's website. I thought this was so cute, and again, just inspiration. I'm not going to dupe this. I am going to kind of turn it into my own little thing, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take 2 of the Dollar Tree little Christmas trees, and I'm going to put them together to make one fuller tree. So again, this isn't going to be a sign, but I'm going to take that print and turn it into something kind of different and my own. So I'm just going to take my trees, and to put them together, I just made sure that I fanned out all of the branches on one side so that one side was flat, and I did that for both of them. And then with some of these garland ties from the Dollar Tree, I'm just going to use those to tie my 2 trees together, and I just went throughout a couple different places and tied my trees together so that they would look like one tree. And then after I've done that, I wanted my tree to look a little flocked, have a little bit more dimension to it. I just took some white Waverly chalk paint, and I just took a little brush and went over it just a little bit. Nothing too crazy. I just wanted a little bit of white detail on my tree. And once that is done, I am going to take some little white berries that I had from some picks. I just pulled it all off of the pick, and I'm going to use those and hot glue them all over my tree. I didn't, place them in any specific area, just kind of went randomly all over the tree. I had the bigger berries, and then I also had some little berries that I thought would be fun on there too, but I ended up just doing the bigger berries instead, and I just hot glue those all over my tree. And then I've somehow found this mini tree bag from Walmart for $4.98, and I thought this was perfect for this DIY. I also had this little basket from the Goodwill for $2.49, and I decided to put the basket into my tree bag so that the bag looked all nice and full. And then all you're going to do is put your tree inside the basket, and that's it for this DIY. I thought this turned out super, super cute. Again, it is not the sign, but kind of a real life version of the sign, if you will, which I thought was really fun. So just a reminder of what the sign looked like and then how my DIY turned out. I found inspiration off of Kirkland's this red and blue plaid wood Christmas tree set of 2. I'm only going to make one of them, but I found these super inspiring and I knew I could make something really, really similar. So what I'm going to do is grab Dollar Tree's wood Christmas tree cutouts that they have. I'm going to grab some scrapbook paper that I got in a pack from Michael's, and I'm just going to use my trusty glue stick and add my scrapbook paper to the Christmas tree. Now, one piece of paper didn't cover the entire thing, so I decided to use 2. I just lined up the plaid stripes as best as I could so that you couldn't see the seam and it all looked nice and cohesive. I'm just going to cut that out using my X-Acto knife, and then I'm going to take a piece of wood. This actually came from the Dollar Tree, and I just cut it down so that I could use it as a stand for my tree. I'm going to stain it using my Waverly Wax and Antique, and then I'm also going to take a tumbling tower block from the Dollar Tree, and I'm also going to stain it in that exact same color. Now, I'm going to do the beads on this tree a little bit different than the Kirkland's one. I'm going to use a combination of some natural wood beads and then some white and gold beads that I actually purchased off of Etsy probably about a year or so ago, probably even more than a year ago now. So I just had these in my stash. You could do whatever color beads you want. You could paint your beads. You could use some beads from the Dollar Tree. This is just what I had on hand, so this is what I decided to use. And I just did a little pattern of a small bead and then a larger bead and then that same small bead and then my white and gold bead, and then did that same pattern over again 3 times for this bottom strand of beads. And then for my top strand of beads, I did the same pattern, but I just did it twice to where I only had 2 of my gold and white beads. And then I just wrapped the strands around the tree. So I did the smaller strand at the top, and then I did the longer strand of beads at the bottom. And I just tied a double knot in the back for both of them to make sure they were nice and tight and in place. And then I'm going to take that tumbling tower piece, I'm going to add some hot glue to the back, and I will add it to the back of my tree, so then I can hot glue it to the stand. Now I'm going to take one of these metal stars that I got in a pack from Hobby Lobby. You could use any kind of star that you had. This is just one that I had big enough for this tree, and I just cut the little loop off of the top using some wire cutters, and then I just hot glue it down to the top of the tree, and this is how my Kirkland's inspired plaid tree turned out. For this DIY, we are going to take one of these sled signs from the Dollar Tree. I think this is so cute as it is, but I wanted to give it a little makeover. So I'm going to start by removing the back, which I have learned are now called runners. Thank you to my subscribers. But I am going to remove those. You don't technically have to do that, but it would just be easier for me with the project that I'm doing to take them off. I'm going to grab one of these bags that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I am going to take the top portion of the sled and I am going to trace around the bag. I just cut the front of the bag off and then laid my sled piece down and then traced around it and cut it out. Now I'm just going to use a glue stick to attach this. Now because this bag is a lot thicker, you probably want to use something a little stronger than a glue stick. I was having some issues keeping the sides stuck down, so some Mod Podge. And I feel like since, again, this material is a lot thicker, that you shouldn't have too many issues with the material kind of wrinkling up, which is why I steer away from Mod Podge a lot of the time, but I'm trying to figure it out. You guys have given me lots of good tips and tricks. But for this, I just put my glue stick down on there. And then for the runner part, I'm going to go through with some Waverly chalk paint. And I gave the parts that you're going to see a good 2 to 3 coats to make sure that it's all nice and covered up. Made sure that that was completely dry. And then I'm going to add some hot glue to the sides. And then I'm going to stick my top portion of my sled right back down like it was before. Now I'm going to take a couple pieces of a Christmas pick that I believe I got from Hobby Lobby. I just have a huge stash of Christmas picks and I'm tearing them all apart, so that's what I did. I'm just going to cut a couple pieces off of a pick and hot glue them down to the top of the sled. Now I wanted a bow, but I didn't really want a ribbon bow for this, so I'm going to grab some cream colored twine and I'm going to make a bow by holding the twine in between my thumb and index finger, and I am going to wrap it around just like that a good maybe 10 to 15 times. I'll cut the ends off so that the tails are nice and long, and then I'll grab an excess piece of twine. I'll wrap it around the middle, and then I'm going to tie a knot right there so everything stays in place. And then I wanted the middle to be a little bit thicker, so I did take that twine from the middle and I wrapped it around the bow several times going both ways, and then I just tied those in a double knot. And then all I'm going to do is hot glue it down to the middle. And then I wanted to add a little bit more detail to my greenery at the top. So I took these white berries that were a part of another pick and I just started hot gluing them down to the greenery. And then last but not least, I'm going to take some nautical rope. I pulled it apart into a different section so that it was smaller because the full nautical rope piece would not fit inside of there. So I just thread that through the 2 holes at the top. I tie a double knot on each side, and this is just going to be the little hanger for the sled. And that is it. I think this DIY turned out super cute, and it only cost me maybe a little over $2. I'm going to take one of these Thanksgiving signs that you can get at the Dollar Tree. I like it because it has all the different, spots that go a little bit longer, kind of that shiplappy, wood look, if you know what I'm talking about. You can see it on the sign. But I'm going to paint that with one rough coat of my Waverly chalk paint in white. I filled in the holes with some wood filler, and then I really did this just really sloppy. I didn't worry about getting everything covered. I wanted it to look rustic and weathered. Right where those slats are, I'm going to draw a line with an acrylic paint pen just in a gray color, just to give it some more dimension, make it look like those shiplap lines. I'm going to rough it up with a little bit of sandpaper afterwards so it's not too perfect, but I just used the slat to make a straight line in between each one of those pieces. Now I'm going to take one of these snowmen that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to start by painting his head and his body just with one coat of my Waverly chalk paint in white. After he is all good and painted, I'm going to take one of these buffalo check tree skirts from the Dollar Tree. I am just going to cut this apart. I like this, number one, for the red buffalo check, and number two, for the trimming around it with the little white fuzziness. I think it's super cute. So what I'm going to do is just take a little section of that, and I am going to cut some of that outer fuzz off of it, and I'm going to use that for the brim of the snowman's hat. So I'm just going to hot glue one side to the back, and then I hot glue the rest of the fuzzy fluff, or whatever you want to call it, to the brim of the snowman's hat. Next, I wanted the snowman's hat to be that red buffalo check. So what I did was just place the material over his hat, and I took a black colored pencil and I just drew right where the brim of his hat was so that I could get the correct shape when cutting it out. I'll cut that fabric out just like that, and then I'm going to hot glue the fabric in between the fluff on his hat. So the fluff on his hat had two different layers to it, so I could open it up and I could insert the buffalo check material, and then I could hot glue it together. So that is what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna put it right in there, and then you won't see any of that seam. And then I'll go through and trim down the buffalo check material, and then I'll just hot glue the rest of it to the back of the snowman. And then for his scarf, I'm going to use that same tree skirt material. I just cut a little piece out for the top of his scarf. And then for the bottom of his scarf, I'm going to take a piece and fold over the top so that you can't see any kind of seam. I'll hot glue that to the very top, and then hot glue the rest of it down for the remaining part of his scarf. Once I've got his scarf all attached to him, I'm going to paint his nose just with an orange acrylic paint that I have. And then I added some more of that fluff from this tree skirt to the bottom of his scarf. Just felt like that kind of tied everything together. Hot glued a little cotton ball to the little pom-pom of his hat. And then I'm just going to hot glue him right down to the sign. And that is it for this adorable snowman buffalo check sign. DIY, you are going to need a pack of shims from your local Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever hardware store. You want to get a pack of shims, and you are going to take out a handful of them. I didn't count how many I used. You'll just grab as many as how big you want your tree to be. All I'm going to do is just hot glue them together, as simple as that, making sure the thicker part is all connected at the bottom and the skinnier part of the shims are all going to be connected at the top. That's all you got to do. Just keep hot gluing your pieces together over and over and over again until you get the thickness that you want your tree to be. Next, I am going to take one of these pillar pieces that actually came off of a tiered tray from Goodwill, and I've had this sitting around in my collection forever, so I decided to use it for this project. I'm going to paint it a white with a couple of good coats, and then I'm going to take this scrap wood piece that actually came from the Dollar Tree, and this is just going to be the base to give it a nice stand. I'm going to let those dry, and then I'm going to move on to our tree portion, which I'm going to paint with the Waverly chalk paint in moss, and I just gave this a really rough coat. I didn't bother trying to cover the entire thing. I wanted this to look rustic and farmhouse, so I did not cover everything up. Then I'm just going to take some hot glue on my little pillar piece and hot glue that down to the middle of our scrap wood. And then I'm going to take this star that I got in a pack from Hobby Lobby. I'm just taking the little ring off the top, and then I'm just going to hot glue this to the top of my tree. And then I'm going to grab some red glittery berry garland that I believe I got from Dollar Tree, either Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby, one of the two. But I'm going to grab this and wrap it around my tree, and then I'll just hot glue that in place, and then I will just add some hot glue to the pillar and add my tree on top, and that is it for this DIY. I thought this turned out super cute, and it was super easy and simple to do. Even if you don't have one of these little pillar pieces like I have, you could use a large dowel. You could go to Lowe's and pick up a leg and cut it down. You could go to Hobby Lobby and get one of their unfinished candlestick holders. So many different options and ways that you could do this DIY. DIY, I was inspired by this Christmas gnome porch board. This was $59.99. Now the one that I'm going to make isn't going to be quite as large, but I still think that it is just as cute, and this one is only going to cost me $1. So what I'm going to do is take one of Dollar Tree's large wood hanging decor pieces. This one is pretty big, and I want to say it's the biggest one that they carry, or at least that I have found. And I'm going to start by cutting off the twine hanger and then adding some wood filler into the holes at the top. Once that's dry, I'm just going to take my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I gave it a good 2 coats. Now, I am no artist by any means. If you've seen any of my videos, me freehanding things does not always turn out very well. But I just tried to follow the picture from Kirkland's as best as I could, and I just used a pencil to trace everything out. The gnome hat, the gnome feet, the nose. I used a paint bottle to get a perfect circle, and then I just did the beard as best as I could. It didn't match completely the one from Kirkland's, but I still thought that his beard turned out pretty cute. So I just started tracing everything out, and then once I had everything drawn out the way that I wanted it, I'm going to just start painting it in. So for his feet, I just used my Waverly chalk paint in black. And then for his body, I'm going to use my Waverly chalk paint in steel. And I just tried my best to go around, his beard, make sure that I'm not getting into the white beard. And I did have to end up doing some touch-ups with the white where I kind of messed up when I was drawing, but I just took my time with it. For me personally, looking at a picture and drawing that way is easier than just trying to draw off the top of my head and try to figure it out that way. I'm not so great when it comes to that, but seeing a picture and trying to mimic the picture is a lot easier than just completely freehanding it. So I just go in and fill in the hat of the gnome. I'm just going to paint the entire thing red, and then I will go back through and add my white stripes after that red is completely dry. I did do about 2 coats of the red paint, and then went in and just did squiggly lines over the hat. Nothing too perfect. I did have to do a couple of coats for each little squiggly line just to make sure that the white was completely covering up the red portion of the hat. And then for the nose, I just used a tan, creamy kind of color for his nose. And then that's it. That's all you got to do for this DIY. Again, it's not as big as the Kirkland's one, but it still gets the job done. DIY, I'm going to take one of these wooden houses that come in a 3-pack from the Target dollar spot for $5. I had already started painting it, forgot to show what it looked like before, but it just comes in a plain wood color, and I chose the medium size one. And I'm going to paint this with my Waverly chalk paint in white. I just painted the entire thing. And then I took some of this ribbon that I found at Walmart. I thought this was so pretty with all the cute little snowflakes on there. And I'm going to cut enough that I'm going to be able to wrap it and tie it around my house. Now, I wanted this to be frayed, so I cut off the sides and I pulled the strings so that the edges were all nice and frayed and kind of messy and distressed looking. Once I've got it as frayed as I like it, I'm going to wrap it around the house to the front, and I'm going to tie it in a tight double knot. I'm going to take some of these rusty bells that I got in a pack from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to take 2 of those. I'm going to hot glue those down, and then I took some scrap pieces of some Christmas picks that I had and just hot glued those right down in there. And that's it for this DIY. Really easy and simple, but I think it turned out so cute. For this DIY, I found this sign at the Dollar Tree. I actually thought this was so cute, and that fox on it was adorable. I'm going to save that for a project for my son's room. I'm going to take apart the sign, take the fox off, take the frame off of the backing. I'm going to take some of this scrapbook paper that I got in a pack from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to use the back of the sign to trace out the paper and cut it out. Now, this backing didn't fit completely in the sign itself, so I made sure to cut out the paper a little bit larger than the backing so that when I put it back in, you wouldn't see any gaps between the sign and the frame. And then to reattach it, I'm just going to add some hot glue in all the corners, and then I just put the backing right on back into the frame. Now I'm going to take some of these bells that I got from the Dollar Tree and some of this twine/rope ribbon. I believe I got this from Hobby Lobby, but I'm just going to loop this through the top of the bell, and then I'm going to tie a double knot at the top of the bell, and then I kind of measure to see where I want the bell to hang from, and once I get that idea, I'm going to tie another double knot at the top, and then I can see where that bell will hang from. Now I'm going to do that to 3 bells. 2 of them will be longer, and then 1 of them will be shorter. Once I have all 3 bells on my string or rope twine, I am going to start hot gluing this to my sign. So I take the middle bell, which is going to be the shortest in length, and I'm going to hot glue that right to the middle of the top of my sign on the frame. So it's just going to hang down from the frame. And then I'll take my 2 identical longer bells, and I'm going to hot glue them on either side of the middle bell. Now I'm going to take some pieces of a Christmas pick that I got, I believe, again from Hobby Lobby. That's typically where I get my Christmas picks. That and Walmart in their 98-cent bins. You can find some really good stuff there. So I just took a couple pieces, and I'm just going to hot glue them to the top of my bell sign. And then I'm going to take some burlap ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to make a bow. Now to do this, I'm going to take one piece, fold it in half, and I'm going to hot glue the ends together. Then I'm going to take a separate piece that is going to be the tails of the ribbon, and I'm going to put the looped part on top of the tails. I'm going to take a piece of twine, put it in the middle, and then just tie that really tight so it all scrunches up in the middle, and then you have yourself a really cute bow. I'm just going to dovetail the ends, and then I also wrapped the twine around the middle several times so it had a cute looking middle piece to the bow. And then lastly, I'm just going to hot glue that to the middle of my Christmas greenery. And that's it for this DIY. I thought this was really cute with the bells hanging down. And I love the contrast of the red and the gold and then the green. I just thought this one was super adorable. For this DIY, we are going to use a roll of toilet paper. Yes, some toilet paper for some decor. And then if you run out, you have some in your Christmas decor. So what I'm going to do is just start by grabbing a white piece of tissue paper. I'm going to wrap it around the toilet paper just because, I didn't want the Charmin logos on my tissue paper. Just didn't think it would look very good. So I just covered it with that tissue paper and stuffed the ends in the holes on each side. And then I'm going to grab some red satin ribbon. I got this from Joann's, I believe, and I cut off about 5 strips that measured the length of the toilet paper with enough on each end to hot glue down inside each of those holes. So all I'm going to do is stick my ribbon inside, add some hot glue, and then wrap it around the toilet paper, add more hot glue, and then stick it down in the opposite hole. And I'm just going to do this for all 5 strips of my ribbon. Now, once that is done, I'm going to take some clear cellophane that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I just wrapped it around my now toilet paper mint about 1.5 times. I'm going to grab some white and red baker's twine. I'll twist up an end of the cellophane and then tie my baker's twine in a really tight double knot, push that mint all the way over as far as I can get it, and then twist that side of the cellophane and then tie it again with my baker's twine. Really, really easy to do. All I'm going to do then is just trim the ends of the ribbon, and that's it. That gives you a super cute, large peppermint that I think would look adorable if you made multiple of these and put them in a basket and maybe set it by your TV or by your Christmas tree, by your mantle. I just think it would be absolutely adorable. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make multiple of these in the next coming weeks so that I can use them to decorate for Christmas. I just think these were so much fun, and it literally took me maybe tops 10 minutes to do. For this DIY, I'm going to take one of these mini tag signs from the Dollar Tree. You get these in their ornament section, and I'm just going to flip it over on its back. I cut off the hanger for it. I took off the tag on the back, and I'm going to give this a good 2 coats of my Waverly chalk paint in white. Once that's all dry, I'm going to take some sandpaper and I'm going to go along all the edges in the middle. I really want this to look rustic and distressed, so I like seeing that natural, it's not natural wood, natural MDF come through on the sides. And now I'm going to take these wooden words that I got in a pack from the Target Dollar Spot last year, but I do know that Dollar Tree currently has wood word DIY pieces that are small like this. I just have never been able to find any at my Dollar Tree, so I'm going to use the ones that I had from Target Dollar Spot. And I just picked out the word believe, and then I'm going to take some of this ribbon that you can get from the Dollar Tree. Technically, this is their autumn ribbon, but I just think that this is so pretty for a rustic kind of Christmas look. So I just cut off a piece enough that I can wrap it around the back of my sign, and I just hot glued that, making sure I pulled really tight so that there isn't any kind of loose or wavy pieces in the front. Hopefully that makes sense and you know what I'm talking about, but I just made sure to pull that really tight. And then I'm just going to take some twine, wrap it around about 3 or 4 times on top of the ribbon. I'm going to tie a double knot, and then I'm just going to use the tails of the twine to tie a cute little bow, again taking 2 loops and then just tying them together. Once I've got that done, I'm going to take my word believe, which is actually a sticker you can pull off the back and just stick it right down to the sign. So that's what I did. And then I'm going to take some more twine. I'm going to put a piece of painter's tape on the top so that I can thread some wood beads through. So I just tied a double knot towards the bottom of the sign, and then I just added 4 wood beads, and then I'll tie a double knot at the top. And that's all you got to do for this DIY. I think this is super cute. Again, you could put this on a tier tray, set it on a shelf by your front door, maybe on your buffet table. I just think this is a really cute accent piece. I'm going to take 2 of these trucks that I found at the Dollar Tree, and then I'm going to take one of their crates that you can get at the Dollar Tree. Normally there are 3 levels to this, but I did remove 2 of the sides and then cut down the sides so that it was just shorter so that I could fit it on my truck. So I just took it out to the garage and cut that down with my saw so the crate was smaller. And then I'm going to take my Dixie Belle chalk paint in Barn Red, and I'm going to paint both of my trucks in this color besides the wheels and besides the bed of the truck. The wheels I'm going to paint black, and then the bed of the truck I'm just going to leave as is because I did like that brown color. Kind of made it look like it was wood on the bed of the truck. And then for the crate, I'll also paint that with the same red chalk paint. And then once those are all painted and dried, I'm going to take some hot glue in that crate, and I'm just going to hot glue it down to the back of my truck. And then I'll attach the other truck to the other side of the crate. And then I'm going to fill the crate with some floral foam and some styrofoam circles because I didn't have any more floral foam. That's all that I had left, so I definitely need to go get some more. I'm just going to put that in for some picks that we're going to use a little bit later. Once that's in there, I'm going to take my Chalk Couture transfers. These are the Christmas minis, and I'm going to use the little peppermint one with the little peppermint candies on there. I'm just going to cut that out. I am going to fuzz my transfer so it's not too sticky on my project. So just fuzz and fuzz and fuzz. And then I'll just align that on the truck door. And then I'm going to use my shimmery white chalk paste for this one. And I'm just going to go over all the little candies. I'll remove my transfer, make sure I wash it so I can use it again later. And look how cute those little peppermints are on the front of my truck. I just think they're really, really cute. Now I'm going to go in with several different Christmas type picks that I had in my stash. These are honestly from all over the place. Hobby Lobby, Joann's, Michael's. I just cut up a whole bunch of different picks. I really liked the pine tree type picks, so I stuck a lot of those in there. And then I found these really cute large berries from the Dollar Tree. I took a pack of those and I just started placing them throughout my little arrangement all over, really just wherever I thought that they would look nice. There's no rhyme or reason to how I did it. I just kind of started putting the berries all over in my arrangement. Once I have all of those in there, I actually found these little lollipop picks at Joann's. They were 99 cents plus on sale, and I just thought that these were so cute. So I grabbed 2 of them and I cut them all apart and I stuck them in my arrangement. And that's all you got to do for this DIY. I think this turned out so adorable, and it is my absolute favorite out of all of my peppermint DIYs today. am going to grab 2 of these little palette pieces that you can get from the Dollar Tree. What I'm going to do is give them both one good coat of the Waverly chalk paint and plaster, and I make sure to get all in between each little slat and the back pieces so that you aren't seeing any of that natural wood poking through. Once those are dry, I'm going to use some of my gel super glue and I am going to attach the 2 pieces together. Now, one option for this DIY is you can take these wired garland ties that you can get in a pack from the Dollar Tree, or you can go a different route, which is what I did. I got this big long garland from Hobby Lobby. I like that this one is thinner and skinnier than the Dollar Tree ones. So what I'm going to do is just cut off about 2-inch pieces, and I didn't count how many I did, but I probably, to guess, would say maybe 20 2-inch pieces, and I just grabbed a handful and I'm going to bunch them all together. And then I'm going to take some floral wire and I am just going to tie them all together at the top with that wire. We're going to do this 3 times, with each set having less pieces than the last. So we are making a little Christmas tree. So you want it fuller at the bottom, and then mediocre in the middle, and then fewer at the top. So you just want to do this 3 times, and then once you have all 3 of your pieces, you are going to start hot gluing them down. So I just hot glue my bottom set towards the bottom, and then my middle set, you're going to hot glue it so that the pieces are covering up the part where you twisted them all together. And then you're just going to do that same exact thing for the 3rd set. And then this is nice because all the pieces have wire in them. You can manipulate them to be exactly how you want them to be. Now I'm going to take one of these stem pieces that you can get in a pack from the Dollar Tree. This one specifically was from Hobby Lobby in a pack, but you can get them from both places. I just cut it down to the size that I wanted it with my miter shears, put a little hot glue on the top, and then pushed it into the bottom of my tree. Now I'm going to take some buffalo check ribbon and I'm going to make 2 loops, and I'm going to tie them together just like you would your shoes. And I am going to add this bow to the top of my tree. I just kind of manipulate the loops as I want them to however big I want my bow to be. And then, like I said, hot glue it to the top of my tree, and that is it for this DIY. DIY, you are going to grab any kind of tree form. I had this foam cone that worked perfectly, and I'm also going to grab some mints from the Dollar Tree. You need about 2 packs. I didn't use quite all of the 2 packs, but the majority of it. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to leave them in the package, and I'm just going to start hot gluing the mints directly to my tree form. I just start at the bottom and hot glue them as close to each other as I possibly can. And this DIY was super easy. This is all you're going to do all the way up to the top of your tree form. I tried to stagger them between each layer so that they're not just, directly in a straight line. Everything's kind of staggered. But this is all you got to do. Just keep hot gluing your mints over and over and over again around your entire tree. Once I get to the top, I try to just hot glue my mints as close to the very tip of my tree as I possibly can get. And then I'm going to take this lollipop pick. Look how adorable this is. I got this from Michael's. It was $4.99 plus on sale. And what I'm going to do is just cut down the pick part as much as I can with my miter shears, because for some reason this was really hard to cut. And then I'm just going to take a utility knife, poke a hole in the top of my tree, and then I am just going to poke my lollipop right down on top. And that's all you got to do for this one. So cute and super easy. DIY, I had a 2x2 piece of wood that I cut down into some blocks. You could also use Dollar Tree's unfinished blocks if you can find them. I wasn't able to at this point, so I just cut some down myself. I'm going to paint one of the blocks with my Waverly chalk paint in moss, one of them in my Waverly chalk paint in white, and the third one in my Waverly chalk paint in steel. And then I also grabbed one of these Dollar Tree wood trees, and I'm just also going to paint that in my Waverly chalk paint in moss. So I'm going to make these look like presents. So what I did was take an acrylic paint marker. This is actually an Arteza one, which I love. If you're ever looking for some good acrylic markers, I would highly recommend Arteza's. And I'm just going to draw some stripes on each side, and then on the top, I will draw a cross stripe where the stripes, meet in the middle, so that it looks like you've wrapped ribbon around your presents. And then I'll just stack my blocks on top of each other, just hot gluing them all down on top of each other. Then I will take this out to the garage, drill a hole in it big enough to fit a dowel from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to stain that dowel in my Waverly Wax and Antique, add some hot glue to the hole in the top present, and stick my dowel right inside that hole. Next, I'm just going to add some hot glue to the top of the dowel and add that tree onto my dowel. And then for a little extra support, I added some hot glue and some ribbon to the back just to make sure that that tree is going to stay in place. And then I just took some red ribbon that I had, tied another simple bow with it, added some hot glue onto the back, and placed it right on that top present against that dowel. And then lastly, I'm just going to add one of these stars that come in a pack from Dollar Tree to the top of my tree, and that is it for this DIY. For this DIY, I was inspired by this peace sign from Kirkland's. It has beads on it and it was rustic. And so I wanted to try my hand at duping it as close as I could. So first I'm going to take a whole bunch of beads that I had and cut them in half using my miter shears. Now you can buy beads already cut in half beads on Amazon. I didn't have any of those on hand, and it was too late to try to buy some, so I'm just using what I got. Some miter shears and some beads, and I'm just cutting them in half, and it worked perfectly fine. Now I'm also going to use this peace sign from the Dollar Tree. I thought that this was perfect. It's similar to the one from Kirkland's. Obviously this one has a little tree, but it still, gets the job done. So I am just going to lay out all my half beads onto my peace sign, and I'm just going to start hot gluing each and every one of them down. Once they are all hot glued down, you can go in and paint it with some white chalk paint. I started doing that and realized how long it was going to take for me to get into every teeny tiny crevice that there was because of the beads. So I decided to take it out and spray paint it with a couple of coats of just some Rust-Oleum flat spray paint. Once I have my paint completely dry, I'm going to take my Waverly Wax and Antique, and very carefully I'm going to go around all of the edges with that, giving it that kind of border with the wax, making it look rustic. And then once I've done that, I'm just going to go over all the beads. I like how the Kirkland's one is distressed, but it's not too distressed, if that makes sense. So I'm just lightly going over all the sides and over all the beads. I'm starting off really light and then building my way up until I have it the way that I like it, but I wanted to make sure I didn't go too overboard with the distressing, so I tried to match that Kirkland's one as best as I could, and I actually think this turned out really, really cute. You are going to grab some red pool noodles. Dollar Tree is still selling the red and green pool noodles, and I'm going to cut them down into 3 pieces, just making each one shorter than the other. So you'll have 3 pieces, all different sizes. I'm just going to start by taking some satin white ribbon, and I just measured out how much ribbon I needed just by wrapping it around each of my little candy cane pool noodle pieces, and I just did that for all 3 of them. Once I had the amount of ribbon that I needed, I'm just going to hot glue the ends to the pool noodle. I won't hot glue the entire thing because I didn't want to have bumps underneath my ribbon, so I just hot glued it at the top and at the bottom, and I did this exact same thing for each piece of my pool noodles. Just hot glued it, wrapped it around my pool noodle kind of at an angle like how a candy cane would look, and then hot glued the other end down. Next, I'm going to take all 3 of my candy cane pieces, and I'm going to take some twine. I'll wrap it around them 2 times and then tying a double knot in the back. You could also hot glue this if you wanted, but I liked the look of the twine wrapped around my candy canes. And then for just a little fun touch, I took some of this greenery that I got from Michael's, and I just took a couple pieces off and hot glued them down to the front of my little candy cane structure. And then I added one of these fake peppermints that I got from a pick from Joann's to the very top. And then with those other peppermints that come on the pick, I just hot glued one to the top of each of the other 2 peppermints. And that is it for this DIY. This turned out so cute, and I think that these would be adorable as centerpieces for a Christmas get-together.
That's it for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Let me know which Christmas project was your favorite in the comments down below. Again, let me know how many Christmas videos that you guys want to see. I'm whipping out all my Christmas crafts and supplies from my tubs in the basement, and I'm going to be bringing them up here and working on some new Christmas DIYs for you guys. Also, don't forget to enter my giveaway linked in my description box. You can also enter by just leaving a comment with how to get a hold of you. But if you want extra entries, make sure you click that link in my description box. Don't forget to subscribe before you guys leave. Give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!